Olá a todos, é um prazer enorme ter vocês aqui hoje, nessa live, junto com o Richard Barrett. Eu sou Roberto Ziemer, eu sou mestre em psicologia organizacional, CEO da Liderança Integral, e junto com a Mirella Ugolini, sou um dos cofundadores do SoulWork. Antes da a gente iniciar essa live, eu quero falar rapidamente sobre o nosso programa de SoulWork. Esse é um programa de desenvolvimento voltado à transição de carreira para profissionais com 40 anos ou mais. A nossa jornada se apoia em 3 trilhas que se complementam. A trilha principal, um caminho coletivo de autoconhecimento, inspirado no ciclo das estações do ano, para trabalhar as fases da transição, término, zona neutra e reinício. Tem também uma trilha individual, que pode ser escolhida pelo participante, por escolha própria, que são sessões personalizadas para trabalhar alguns dos temas que a gente apresenta no SoulWork, só que com mais profundidade no nível individual, como crenças limitantes e descarrilhadores de carreira. E tem uma trilha complementar que transforma a narrativa pessoal em presença de mercado, por meio de storytelling, marca profissional e job hunting ativo. Muito além de um programa de recolocação, o SoulWork é uma jornada de autodescoberta e reinvenção pessoal e profissional, em que o participante tem a oportunidade de revisitar seus sonhos e projetos ocultos, não vividos, e também as barreiras que o impedem de realizá-los. Hoje, além de recebermos um convidado ilustre, temos também uma novidade muito especial. Essa live inaugura o canal oficial do SoulWork no YouTube. A partir de agora, esse será um espaço vivo de reflexão e aprendizado sobre temas que estão redefinindo o futuro do trabalho, contando com especialistas, entrevistas exclusivas, práticas e metodologias que ajudam as organizações e os profissionais a atravessarem as fases de transição de carreira com mais consciência, dignidade e propósito. Então, aproveite esse momento para inscrever-se no canal e compartilhar com a sua rede. Assim você não perde os próximos encontros e ainda ajuda a levar esse debate para mais pessoas. E vale lembrar, essa live ficará gravada no canal, disponível para você poder rever ou indicar para colegas de trabalho e equipe. E agora vamos dar as boas-vindas ao nosso ilustre convidado, Richard Barrett, um dos maiores especialistas globais em cultura e liderança baseada em valores. O Richard vai responder as perguntas enviadas pelos profissionais que estão com a gente hoje. E você também pode mandar a sua pergunta pelo chat durante a live. Essa live também terá legendas automáticas do inglês para o português em tempo real, para que todos possam aproveitar o conteúdo da melhor forma possível. Richard, thank you so much for being with us and accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much. Bom dia.
Aha! That's a good
That's
introduction in Portuguese. Your Portuguese is
well,
perfect.
those are the few words that I can speak, but I do understand quite a few words. Anyhow, I'm very happy to be with you today and to be with all of the people who are in our audience, the participants. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to our session. Let's get started, shall we?
Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation. As you know, we received a lot of excellent questions about our main theme, how to conduct dismissal or layoffs processes with a human-centered attitude. And to deep our understanding of this so important theme, we grouped the questions in five themes. The first one is about values, culture, and purpose. And my first question to you, Richard, is how can we align organizational and individual values in offboarding processes?
Well, first of all, it seems obvious, but you have to have some declared values in your organization. And people have to know what those values are and have some experience in living those values. Now, I have found that the two people who are most important in as being guardians of the values are the leader, the CEO, and the head of HR. And these people are effectively the guardians of the soul of the organization, because the values are a direct reflection of the deeper aspects of the organization, and I call it the deeper aspects of the soul. So what is important is that these values, these declared values in the company, are lived not just during onboarding when people join the company, but also during offboarding when people leave the company. And sometimes it's not always recognized that that is important, because there is too much urgency involved in the offboarding process, because generally offboarding, it comes about because there is a need to cut costs, and cutting costs is important and needs to be done quickly, or at least that's what people say. But it's very traumatic for the people who are leaving to have a job one day and the next day not to have a job, because their whole survival is threatened. And so it's important to treat those people and talk to those people in a manner that reflects the deepest values of the organization, and also reflects the fact that they are human beings and they're not human resources. They're human beings, and they have lives. They've got families. Now, sometimes when you get to an older age, like myself, leaving the company can be a real some joy or something to look forward to, and when you're in your late 50s or 60s and people say, well, okay, we're going to have to cut your job, well, they go, okay, this might be an opportunity, because I can see a new future for myself. Now, this is not true for people in their 40s or 50s who are in the middle of their career, and so it brings up a lot of fear, and they don't realize that actually it could be, this might be an opportunity for them to reinvent themselves. Let me stop there and get your reflection on that.
Excellent. And the second question relates directly to what you said. How can companies preserve the dignity and legacy of mature employees in transition?
Well, coming back to the same question, treating them like human beings. How would you treat a member of your family? Because that's the people who work in the organization are effectively members of the organizational family. They're part of the organizational soul. And when you suddenly cut out a piece of that, it's extremely traumatic. So the key is just a one four-letter word, and that is, in English, it's called love, Love. How can you go through this process with love? What is love asking you to do in this process? And I think the first thing that love is asking you to do is to give respect to the people who are leaving, and also to give them an opportunity to speak, particularly to the HR managers, give them an opportunity to speak to what was it when they were in the company that really enlivened them. What did they enjoy about the company? What is their legacy? What do they feel is the legacy that they've left in the company? Because people want to feel like they made a difference. And so if you can ask them, well, what is the difference that you think you made, and have a discussion about that, that will give them the feeling of actually having contributed something important. The second thing I already mentioned is people, when they are leaving a company or asked to leave, don't see it as an opportunity. They see it as the opposite. I know, when you get to be old like me, I'm 80 years old, and I've left a lot of companies in my lifetime. Each time I left, I realized that actually, within a few months, that it was an opportunity. Now, mostly I did not leave because I was asked to leave. I left because I had something new to go to. But even people who are asked to leave, I've talked to them, and they say, 6 months, a year later, it really turned out to be an opportunity. But they may not believe you at that point when they're leaving, but it's important to raise that possibility that this may be an opportunity for them to do what they really love. And this is what's important when you get to the age of 40 and 50, is you have to find meaning and purpose in your life. And maybe the meaning and purpose is not working in that company. Maybe the meaning and purpose is something completely different, and that you haven't had the courage to actually do that. When I was 52, I left the World Bank. I had a really good job, and I started the work that I do now. Some 30 years later, I look back and say, that was a perfect moment, because I discovered who I was and what my gifts and talents were. Sometimes we can't always explore our gifts and talents in a situation where we are going into work every day and expected to do certain things, A, B, C, and D. And we get so used to doing that, we don't realize that there may be something else in our souls wanting to be expressed. And it's important to have that discussion with people when they leave.
Yeah, very good. And you mentioned the 6 months period, and I feel that's very critical for people to reflect on their own transition process. What kind of support people need during this 6 month period, in your opinion, so they can do the transition between the grief of leaving the company and reconnecting with their new purpose?
Well, I think it depends on age. I think younger people, so say people who are single or in their 20s and 30s, they will, generally speaking, be quick to see, I can do something different, I can do something else, and they're full of hope. And so that, I think, is not so difficult for people below the age of 35. Once you get to 35 and above, generally speaking, you are married and you have a family. And so the first question that comes up is, how am I going to survive if I lose my job? And that is like the number one concern that people have, especially if they have a young family. And so the financial conditions in which they live need to be thoroughly thought through. Not the question of you are fully paid today and you are not fully, you don't have any money tomorrow, but even a transition period where people can see that, okay, they can keep on going for your 6 month period or whatever it is. And so there's a gradual reduction in salary to the moment that people leave, until the moment that there is a cut-off. Now, that is fundamentally important, because that's where the biggest fear lies. for those people. It's like, how can I survive? It's, the 7 levels of consciousness model. Level 1 is survival. And it's on how do I survive? And so that question needs to be addressed, particularly for the 40-year-olds or 30 and 40-year-olds. In the 50s and 60s, people are generally speaking a little more settled in their lives. Maybe their children have left home and they don't have the expenses of putting their children through college, etc. And so at that age, it's more of a question of how am I going to find meaning and purpose in my life if I leave this company? Maybe they're not finding meaning and purpose, and the actual point of leaving, it gives them an opportunity to find meaning and purpose, maybe to become an entrepreneur, which is what I did when I left the World Bank. I became an entrepreneur, and I never looked back actually on that, even though, the people in the World Bank wanted me to stay, but they wanted me to stay in a particular job which had no meaning for me.
Yeah.
And what had meaning for me is what I wanted to do, which was develop ways of helping organizations and people live their values and create great organizational cultures. That's what I wanted to do. But the people in the World Bank weren't interested in me doing that. They were interested in me doing what I used to do before, which was a transportation engineer. And I kind of like, that was old. It was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I've changed because you see, as we get older, we go through stages of psychological development. And that 40 and 50-year-old, late 40s, is particularly a time when we're looking for meaning and purpose in life. So having the opportunity to leave may be the way to find meaning and purpose. And so the question then comes is, can the organization help you to do that? I'm not sure to what extent the organization can help in that, but at least they can give you a period of time where to reflect and to a sort of cushion between the moment you're going to leave and when you've fully left. Again, maybe financial help could be necessary. I remember, I hope I'm not talking too much, but I remember when I left the World Bank, they gave me 1 year's salary and I left. Now that 1 year's salary was really important to me because it enabled me to get established doing what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Excellent example. Thank you, Richard. Now I would like to change for another topic. There's leadership and offboarding. And the question is, what skills do leaders need to develop to conduct layoffs with a human-centered mindset?
Well, these skills are not so much skills as higher levels of human consciousness. And the first thing that comes into mind is empathy and compassion.
Compassion. Uh-huh.
Empathy and compassion.
And compassion.
Yes, because you see, compassion is empathy, but actually doing something about. Empathy is sharing the feelings of the people who you're with and the people who are leaving. And so to empathize means to be able to say, well, look, I know something like this. I know this is not ideal for you. We got to this place of difficulty, not because we designed it that way, it's because it's what happened in the marketplace. And in order to continue to do what we do, which you helped us to do, we're having to cut some jobs. And so we're really sorry. And we understand how this might affect you. And we're going to do everything we can to help you make this transition, because it is a transition. And so it's how you talk to people. I mean, it's not about sending an email saying, don't show up for work tomorrow. That's the worst thing you can do.
Sure.
it's important that the people in the HR do actually talk to the people who are leaving, actually share. You need to be empathetic in order to do this. And it's a skill that not many CEOs have, actually. I'm not saying all of them don't have it, but it's a higher level of consciousness which sometimes goes against the let's get the job done, let's make some money, let's do this, let's do that. And forget the human side and the emotional side of life. Now, as a true CEO or leader, you can't forget the emotional side of life. You need to embrace your own emotional side and the emotional side of the employees who are under your care. Now, this may be a later question, I don't know, but I often think, well, to what extent do you treat people who are leaving in the same way that you treat people who are arriving?
Mm-hmm.
That's
a good metaphor.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, are you is the same level of care go into people leaving as the people arriving? And the answer is, of course, it should be. Should be the same level of care.
Yeah.
And again, I come back to the idea that the leader and the head of HR are the guardians of that caring process.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. Is seeing yourself in the condition of the other person. Is putting yourself in the same situation and asking what I would like to receive at this moment from the company. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Roberta, I know from your background in the psychological field, you must have come across this a lot. And actually, you exemplify this higher level of consciousness in the work that you do. I've seen you doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tried the best. It's a challenge.
Of course, it's a challenge, but when you say you try the best, what are you trying your best to do? You're trying the best to be a caring human being.
Yeah.
And I think we should all, the people in these leadership positions, they probably have families and they care for their families. And so the people in the organization are an extension of the family. And you question, well, how are you going to care for your family?
Yeah, the organization as a part of the extended family. Beautiful, beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
There's another topic here that I think it's important to discuss. What are the greatest ethical dilemmas leaders face during dismissals?
It can be very traumatic, not just for the people who are leaving, but for the leaders who realize that, who think.
Yeah, and those who stay in the company too.
Yeah, well, yes, I'll get out of that in a minute, but for the leaders, particularly who see having layoffs or people leaving as a sign of failure, because when you're a leader, what you want is you want your organization to grow.
To grow,
and, and to increase profits, etc. And when there is a problem with lower profits and you have to cut down the expenses, and that means cutting down the number of people working for you, it can come as a feeling of failure.
Failure, defeat.
Yeah. Now, I remember during the pandemic, I mean, I think we're all old enough to remember the pandemic.
Yeah.
There were 2 or 3 different ways of handling this when business slowed down. In order to avoid losing people, everybody agreed to take a cut in salary. And sometimes that is a way through the difficulty. So now I'm not talking about the process of offboarding, but I'm talking about the conditions that lead to the process of offboarding.
Yeah.
And if it's possible, in order to get the idea across that the organization is a family, then as a family we will deal with this together, and so that everybody in the organization will take a cut in salary in order to avoid having to let people go. Now, that's a high consciousness organization and a high consciousness leader who can see that. But when you have a leader whose ego and pride are wrapped up in the amount of their salary, and many are, that's not going to happen. And so, it's probably is not the offboarding is not going to be very nice in that particular situation. So, coming back to what I call full spectrum consciousness, do the leader and the HR people that have full spectrum consciousness, are they able to address all the different 7 levels of consciousness in a way that is supporting the well-being of the company? Mm-hmm. So they can deal with crises, or they can deal with environmental issues, but they deal with all of these different issues in the same way, from the same bed of values, deeply held values, which are the values of the soul of the organization.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, the 7 levels of consciousness, could you summarize the 7 levels for our participants?
Yes. I'll try and do it quickly, but I invented this nearly 30 years ago. Survival is first. It's basically an expansion and extension of Maslow's hierarchy. So the first level is survival. That's the first thing that we turn our minds to in difficult situations. And then we build on that through relationships. That's the second level of consciousness. And then the third level of consciousness concerns self-esteem. And so we have to have all of those levels of consciousness in place, or master those levels of consciousness to be successful. Now, these 3 levels, survival, safety, and security, which are survival, relationship, and self-esteem, if you don't have a positive aspect to those levels, then you introduce the idea of fear. I don't have enough. I'm not loved enough. And I'm not enough. But once you're able to master those levels of consciousness, then you move on to the next level, which is the level of transformation, where you focus less on what's in it for me, but start to think about what's best for the larger good. And obviously, if you're only in those first 3 levels, you're basically a manager. It's only when you get to the 4th level that you begin to become a leader, when you expand your sense of identity to other people. And then at the 5th level, you're trying to build internal cohesion, not only in yourself by living your values, but also in the organization, by the organization living their values and having a certain vision and mission for the organization. And then the next level is the level of making a difference, where we want not just to follow our mission, but in the process of following our mission, we want to make a positive difference in the world. And then finally, the level 7 is the level of service. That's the level where we really like to make the organization provide benefits for humanity, and not just for the employee, and not just for the leaders. So that's a full spectrum organization. And so the full spectrum organization takes care of everybody and everything in the best way that they can. And of course, making a difference and being of service is really great for the employees, because they feel like the organization is fulfilling a bigger purpose other than making food or making machinery, but it's actually fulfilling a larger purpose in life. And so it gives employees a sense of pride in working for the organization. Mm-hmm. And so anyhow, those are the supplements.
Excellent. I think it was good for you to share with people the 7 levels model, because not everyone is aware of the model who are participating in the meeting. Excellent.
Yes, I know that I come to Brazil, as you know, every 2 years, quite frequently, and have been coming for many, many years. And the concept of the 7 levels of organizational consciousness is quite well understood in Brazil, and at least 4 of my books have been translated into Portuguese. So, and these books sell very well. And so I know that there are many people who understand what I'm talking about.
Excellent. Now we are going to the last theme of our discussion here, human and organizational impacts. How can we mitigate the emotional impacts of layoffs for those leaving and those staying?
We often forget about those who are staying.
Yeah.
But
this is an important group, huh?
Because you can actually lose a lot. If you don't care for the ones who are leaving, the ones who remain see you as not living by value, human values, and they then start to question themselves as to why they're working in this organization that treats people so badly. And so the energy of these people and their contribution will go down if they don't respect and trust the organization. So that's one of the best reasons for dealing with people leaving in a caring and loving manner, is because it will send a signal to the people who remain that the true values of the organization. And you can't put a price on that, because people when they go to work every day, they have what we call discretionary energy. That's the amount of energy they're willing to give to the work that they're doing. When there is low discretionary energy, you'll find people sitting at their computers playing games, or spending a lot of time talking to each other around the coffee machine, because they don't have that. They don't have that sense of purpose and belonging. So the question of belonging and purpose are fundamentally important to employees, and to keep that sacred, even when people are leaving, and to honor the people who are leaving. So it's not like people are leaving and then one day they're here and the next day they're gone. No, you need to be able to have a ritual.
A ritual.
A ritual for people who are leaving, so that they are honored publicly for their legacy, for what they did. Now, that has not only does that have an impact on the people who are leaving, but it has an even bigger impact on the people who are staying, because they see that the people are leaving, but they left a legacy, and that legacy is actually something that the people of the organization really respects and loves. And so, so it's really, it's a very delicate dance, if you like, between leaving and staying. But the people who are staying need to be considered in the leaving process.
Yeah. And I'm very happy that you use the word ritual, because I think it's so important, because rituals that are very well devised, they connect people on a level that's not only the rational mind, it also connects with the emotional and the spiritual dimension. Don't you think so?
It's always been like that. If we go back, 10,000 years in history, even to the hunters and gatherers and the tribes, and there were always rituals which reinforced the sense of belonging. And so we tend to forget that today. We forget, we treat people just as objects, but those rituals cement relationships, cement the idea of belonging to something that's important and life-giving. And then later on, when people leave, and they leave in those conditions, they will look back and say, it was a good organization. We got into difficulties and I left, but it was a good organization. And you want people to speak like that. You want people to say, it's a good organization.
Yeah. And that's a dimension that I feel it's missing in most organizations, this ritual part in the offboarding process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote down, because I knew I was going to be talking to you, a few questions that that the HR people could ask.
Yeah.
When people are leaving. Not a ritual, but an exit interview. That's questions like, were your needs in our organization met? Your needs for security and clarity and support while you were here, were these needs met? Were you able to trust our leaders? In what ways did you feel most recognized and valued for your contributions? How did your role in the organization help you to grow and develop? What were the good memories?
Yeah.
Looking back, what guided you most strongly in the organizations? What part of your legacy are you most proud of? And is there anything you'd like the organization to learn from your experience and from this process of leaving? So this is a fantastic opportunity to ask these questions and to get more information about what's working and not working in the organization, because whether you're an individual or an organization, we're all trying to improve. Self-improvement. And these questions allow you to get the feedback necessary to improve in the future. Now, some people are scared of feedback,
Yeah.
I used to I promised I wouldn't tell a joke, but I will tell one. What is the worst thing that men hate to hear from their wives? And the question is,
what is?
What is the question that most men hate to feel? Darling, we have to talk.
We have to talk. That is a kind of a threat, isn't it?
It can be perceived that way, but it's really it's an opening for feedback.
Feedback, yes.
And the most important thing about feedback is to be open to feedback and not to be defensive about feedback.
Sure.
So I would say, it's something you want to tell me. That's great. I'm really wanting to hear what it is that you have to tell me, right? So there's no fear involved.
You passed the test.
Yes.
Very good. We are almost at the end of our conversation, but many people are interested in what global trends in humanized offboarding can inspire Brazilian companies. Do you know any trends in this direction? Have you heard about them?
I'm not expert on trends in offboarding. However, what I do know is what I've told you today is I know how it should be done. And I do believe that in many places it is done in that way. Now, it's interesting that talking about trends, when you look at what's the word? Worldviews. Every country has a particular worldview. I've classified the different worldviews, and we find the highest worldviews, the most caring worldviews in the Nordic nations, the countries of Scandinavia. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland.
Netherlands?
No, not Netherlands, but you could include Netherlands, but Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland. And what you notice about those countries is that they have a higher level of consciousness than most other countries, and therefore are examples. So if you're looking for the best ways of dealing with offboarding, that's the place to look, because in those countries they really care about each other, and I think Brazil has that potential because it has in a sense, it's quite a spiritual country, Brazil. And what that means is a caring country. I mean, I go to many countries, but the country where I am most well received is Brazil, always. Because I think people resonate with who I am and with my message. And I would suggest that if you're looking for best practices in this particular area, would be to look in the Scandinavian nations.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And final message from you to CEOs and directors about how to treat mature professionals at the time of their transition. And what would you say about that? What's the message for CEOs and HR directors, if you can summarize your presentation?
Well, very quickly, easy, no problem. The question would be simply this. If you were in the position of the person who is leaving, how would you like to be treated? That's the question.
Yeah.
If you were in that position, how would you like to be treated? And therefore, would you like to can you treat that person in the way that you would like to be treated?
The golden rule.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Richard, we appreciated so much your presentation and our discussion. I think this topic deserves more time so we can see it from other angles. And I think it's only a beginning. We are beginning the endings of how to work with endings, with layoffs. Thank you so much, Richard. It was an honor to be with you. And I hope we meet again in the same channel in the future, okay?
Me too.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And I love you, Roberto.
I love you too. Thank you so much, Richard. Stay well, my friend. Saudação.